Going to go ahead and start up. It's 11:45. Wanted to thank everyone for being here promptly over at West End, and it's great to be here. Thank West End for having us. And so I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first, I'd like to ask if there's anything that needs to be added to the agenda at this time. No? Okay. Then there's nothing to be added. Then I'd like to get someone to make a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of the May 24th, 23 regular meeting minutes, pending deposited gift report and statistical report as submitted. Can I get a motion there?
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Sharon. And a second?
I'll second.
Garrett, thank you. And all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay. Let's get on that one. Let's jump right in, public comment period. I don't think we have anyone, no, okay, good. So we'll move to the reports, library friends, Ruth, I see you here joining us, thank you. I know it's been busy for you, good to see you.
Did want to make a correction to the meeting minutes and ask about, it said, we made $5,000 on our bag sale. We only made about $1,500.
Okay,
But the sales have been good this year. And I know that you received a little bit of a report from Clay last time. So the town have been asked by the library to kind of move out from part of the mezzanine where our book sales are. So, and then that, because the library operations will be taking over that area, there'll be no more public access to that. So we have made an appointment for the use of the auditorium for the time period of our usual sale. So our book sale will be different. And we'll do it like some other friends do, and we'll be gathering every table the library has. And possibly renting people and pulling books out and laying them out and in boxes, and people just come through. So we're still sorting that out. The main library is going to give us a little portion of the main reading room for a friend's daily sale area. We're still trying to figure that out. I understand that there's no library furniture fixture that we can use for that area. So we're kind of sorting out what kind of things we do, how to arrange it, how to get payments, etc. And then, yes, we have arranged to have our fiscal year moved to reflect the City of Richmond fiscal year. So this year we're kind of going from April to June, and our wonderful volunteer tax person is just going to file a short year for the April through June tax for taxes statement, and then we go into the next full year. So we have stated for this year a gift of $11,000 to the library, which was what was asked for at the beginning of the year. And the check is in the proverbial mail. I think that should be looked for pretty soon. And as for some of the books that we've been kind of de-exceptioning ourselves out of the wholesale area, we have been giving books to several of the state correctional facilities.
Mhm.
So we have contacts with Greensville, Beaumont State Farm, and Nottaway correctional facilities. And someone on our board is very involved with diversity thrift, so some of the books that we aren't able to sell have been going to those locations.
excellent. It's all the positive news. You mentioned on the furniture, just nothing surplus anywhere to help you all with that.
Yeah.
No,
that's
okay,
what I understood, so we're looking.
okay. Any other questions for Ruth at this point or anything? No, Okay, Susan, got you back there for the foundation?
The foundation wants to express our appreciation to the Board of Trustees for their individual financial support this year, which has been significant, as well as the opportunity to work with the trustees so closely on the library's strategic plan initiatives. Thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to engage with our government. On the grant, we have deeply grateful to Chris Peterson for the guidance on that effort. We will learn by July 24th whether or not we will be invited for a full commission. We have submitted Memorial Foundation for Children and expect to hear by December of this year. Our REB Foundation, we will hear in fall of 2023, and we have re-upped for the Commonwealth of Virginia campaign. And I want to thank Emily for helping me confirm that. We appreciate that. And then we also want to thank the Alex and Margot Glenn Foundation for their grant in support of the 50th Women's Concert Season this fall. Funds through the grant will enable the purchase of AV equipment that strengthens the library's ability to connect with patrons and members of the public house and libraries. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Susan? No? Okay, just rolling along. Scott, administration?
All right, only thing to add to the report that you have in your packet is we have officially hired Craig Gill Walker as the branch manager at the North Avenue Branch Library. And he will he's been there in an acting role for the last 6 months, 8 months. And will take over permanently in July. And we're excited about that. Craig has brought a lot of new ideas and really helped us get things back on track after the water disaster. So I encourage you all to stop in and take a look. We have kind of it looks different over at North Avenue. Some of the shelving has gone away. We've opened up more spaces for people to connect with their computers or just have space to read or meet with people. So I think it'll be a little bit, it's a fresher look, more welcoming, more inviting. So I'm optimistic that we can see that kind of roll out across the system. So please join me in welcoming Craig. We've got a couple other positions that we're working on filling, and we should have those filled by the end of June. And we've hired the temporary summer reading program people were hired, and they are helping out immensely. We are having a very successful summer reading program. I think one of the big indicators is we are having to reprint the logs that we distribute, and that means logs are going out, which is great. I'm excited that we will have a big end of the summer event at Maymont. We're partnering with Parks and Rec. And so we're going to make that a focal point of the summer. And I think the timing is right for that. That'll happen in August. So summer reading program has been going really big. Last weekend, I don't know if any of you caught it on social media or had a chance to attend, but we had the RippleCon event, which is a Comic-Con event. It was very successful. We had many tables. It's probably the first time I've actually seen Darth Vader in the library. And it was a very effective Darth Vader. So I really applaud all of the efforts of our youth services staff, library staff. It was an all hands on deck sort of situation. So we had lots of activities for Switch gaming, cosplay, programs. We had a colorist from Marvel Comics come and talk about his craft and how he, digitally colors in comics. That was very interesting. It was just a really positive event, and I have to congratulate staff for their planning and execution. It just went really well. So, and of course, Ripple was there. So he got to interface with a lot of the other cosplayers. So that was fantastic. Really not much more to report. Budget is wrapping up. We'll talk about that in the financial committee report, and we have a couple things to report from facilities. So that's all I have right now.
Okay. Garrett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning still, actually. Just to keep it real brief, thanks to Gianna for circulating the summer advocacy letter that I prepared for you guys to send to all your city council representatives. Again, high level, we just want to thank them again and reiterate all their contributions they've made this year, particularly as we go into the new budgetary season. Because the investment has been amazing. But we want to make sure, as always with advocacy, that we continue that messaging. So in the email that you received earlier this morning, one, it does highlight the My Pain Smart event that took place in April, also celebrates obviously National Library Week that also took place during that same time frame. But it also covered some things that are coming up during the summertime. I really love the 2023 summer guide that's on the website. It's fantastic. And I really want us to be able to send that link out to our council representatives so they can be able to give that to their constituents. Because there's so much that's going on in the libraries during the summertime. And, you know, I hear every day, like, well, what am I gonna do with my kids for the summer? You know, outside of like, you know, these week or two programs that exist, where you can keep them busy all summer. by bringing them to your local library, you know? So, you know, we want to be able to celebrate that. So that's included in the communication. And then obviously towards the end of the communication is our roundabout ask, if you will, say like, hey, we're doing all these amazing things from a program perspective, but there's so much more we can do. There's so many more people we can touch through additional funding, you know, from city council.
Questions for Garrett on advocacy? Okay. And we will jump over to Chris on your early literacy.
I think I'm just gonna echo what Scott said, the summer. Yeah, everything he said, absolutely right.
Okay, and the team that you've gotten on the summer hires really dug in. They doing great from the sound of
They're
it,
here in
right?
place. We've been doing the 3-2-1 liftoffs, so those events have been occurring at our branch locations, and we're partnering with Excel and the Children's Museum. We're learning a lot from those events.
And I think that's well, yeah.
We're learning a lot from those events, and we're really we will come away with a lot more information on how to connect with
Yeah, I think
families and children during the summer.
product is spectacular. The offering and teamwork is outstanding.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to touch on as chair, that I passed along that summer pack, the however you refer to the name of it, but the guide, thank you. The summer guide to several people, and universally, the reaction I've gotten was, wow, how much they didn't know was being offered by the library. And I think that, you know, that's a sort of a two-edged sword. We'd like everyone to know everything that's going on, so they take advantage of it. But, you know, over time, they will. That's the getting the message out that this year's summer just, and maybe it's coming out of COVID too. People have gotten used to having fewer, but they have been, people I've talked to have been really impressed. And like you said, things to do with the children, things to do with the family, and just innovative, just not the same old stuff that has always been done. You know, a lot of variety in there. Not that the traditional is bad at all, but just that continuing to build on all that. Been very positive on that. And before we get into finance, the other thing that I had, and I don't have a lot, is the budget. I want to touch on a couple of quick things with that. Scott's going to talk more about it, but I got asked Scott for clarification because people have asked me what's going on with the capital budget and the master plan. And I've gotten at least a better understanding in my mind as to where we sit in that process, which is that there's nothing immediate that's going to be done there because the capital budget is a 2-year capital budget. So that will be revisited in 24 for 25. They'll start putting the 25-26 budget together, which some of the things I had contacted Scott the other day and said, hey, maybe Garrett, because he frankly knows the mayor well, and I thought, you know, and I could get together with Scott, could get together with the mayor or some of the other people and just sort of get a feeling for where we stand in that line, because we don't want to have an opportunity to go past us. With the new elections coming up, clearly nothing's going to happen on the budget until we have a new administration chosen. So I think we can sit back on the capital budget and know that, well, you had a meeting earlier this week that referenced it, that we're in the position that we need to be for at least the next year, really, 14 months, something like that, whatever it is, till the election, 16 months, 17 months. Anyway, so we're sort of sitting on that one for a little bit, I think. But that does remind me that we had said we were gonna, from advocacy, really make a good pitch to thank everyone for that. All the council members, all the other people in the government who we've been dealing with, and I think we've done a good job of that. We're actually now, end of this week, or I guess Saturday, we hit the new fiscal year. We're gonna be wrapping into that new budget period, and we now, I think, have to start shifting our thought process from thanking for the great job that they did of funding us and getting us sort of even with where we were pre-COVID,
Right.
to, okay, there are a lot of things we're trying to do to hit our, our strategic plan, particularly on the literacy, but strategic plan for access and some of the other things. We need to now, as we get into August, September, October, really start pushing that the 800,000 was fantastic and it got us somewhere. But, we're not stopping there. We need to get a lot more to really do the things that we're doing. And I think we build on those successes that we've seen from, we really spent the money well. I guess is what I would say, that extra 800 this year. Really, it's opening those hours, it's let the early literacy get going. It's done what we promised. And I don't know how many city organizations can say that when they get the money, it really paid off. I think we can sort of take a little victory lap, all of y'all can, that the library and you as individual board members came up with ideas of what was needed. City council came together and backed us for it, and they've been well accepted, well implemented, and well accepted by the community. So anyway, we'll be getting into that more at the end of the summer. But as you start talking to people, we, like I said, once again, start shifting from that thank you to thank you, and we really hope to build on it. We're gonna need more money next year. Okay.
Right.
That's pretty much all I had to say. I'm gonna turn things over to Garrett or Scott for the budget. Finance committee.
Okay.
Finance report.
Basically, the city is wrapping up fiscal year 23. This last meeting, they had an adjustment where they put money into people's budgets who were kind of overspent. Departments across the city. So there was about $18 million reallocation of funds on Monday night. We received an extra 116,000 in our budget to balance some things. So if you saw that, that's what that was for. So some things didn't come in. And if you think, oh, 116,000, that's a lot of money. That's a big miss. It's an $8 million budget. So if you think about it proportionally, that's a very small percentage
Yeah.
of our budget in terms of like how much we missed by. So
Yeah.
our,
Good question.
yes, ma'am.
Is there a penalty for overspending your budget?
No, right. We'll keep that in mind as we go forward. Now,
If you
I,
overspend too much, it
Well,
does,
You don't want to be a bad actor.
Right.
But, yeah.
right,
yeah.
but 0.01%
Yeah.
of what we did is not a big miss.
Yeah.
I like that better than handing money back.
Never.
Right, so,
Never.
it's an art, not a science. So that's what that was about. And going into fiscal year 24, we have a lot of opportunity. I've given you all this booklet that was distributed at one of the meetings, and if you go to page 14, you'll see the city is proud to announce that they're supporting the libraries with the $800,000 extra in the budget. We have a
Yep.
whole page, half of a page directed to us. And I bring that to your attention because that's your advocacy that paid off there. And when our city is highlighting that, that is something very special because they're talking about us. And that is something that we haven't seen very often. And when they're talking about us, that's a good thing. And I really want to thank you and credit you with your advocacy for getting that. And now, going into 24, we're going to have to carry the mail. And we're going to have to do what we said we were going to do. So we're going to have to show how that $800,000 is making a difference. And we're going to do what our strategic plan is laid out. We're going to do more. We're going to have more access. We're going to have more literacy programs. We're going to do more lifelong learning. And that's going to be more hours, more people, and more programs. and more books on the shelf and more access to information. So those things that we do, we're going to do more of.
Excellent.
And that funding will allow us to do that. It's gonna take us a little bit of time to ramp up. But I want you to be able to go when you're thanking them and reminding them and asking them for more. Hey, this is what we're gonna be doing. And so our goal as a library system for the next 6 months is to get there and be creative in how we can open the doors more and do more programming and put people in place to get done what you all have laid out for us. So I'm excited about it. I'm proud that the city's taking credit for it, that the
We
city
all
is
should be
helping us.
proud.
This is a lot of teamwork went into this. And so I'm grateful and thankful for all of that. So that's a big deal. We're kicking off the next fiscal year. We're going to be doing that with funding, continue the advocacy. And that's where we're at. I'll have more detailed information next month once they kind of break down where they're going to put the money. And then we're going to have to move some of the funding around to get it done. That's just how it kind of works. Again, it's art. And so sometimes we're looking back to look forward, and it takes a little bit of work with the administration, with finance and budget to get the funding where we need to based on our priorities and our strategy. So
I might mention that one of the things Scott's got to do on that is translate, take some of that money and say, okay, you funded for me to open longer hours, et cetera. Now you've got to authorize positions.
right,
Okay.
right.
So it's the money's there for it, but the positions aren't. And then
Right.
he'll be working on some of that. But the goal on that is north, south, and west
Right. So
and Maine.
formerly in the budget, 800,000 is to do restore Sundays at Maine, restore Sundays at Ginter Park, continue Sundays at Broad Rock, and open Sundays here in the West End. So staffing up to get the manpower to cover the open hours and also have programming in the space in our libraries to attract people to want to come in.
Right.
Sundays are going to be huge. Those are the opportunities on a Sunday afternoon when people have time to get to the library. And it'll be great to have the libraries open, but it'll be even better to have programs and activities in the space that make people want to come to the space and have something to do. The next thing so that gets our physical infrastructure going. That's Sundays. We need to also look at more evening hours. I want to see us expand evening hours later in the night, in the evenings, because right now we're only open 2 nights a week in our branches. We need to be open more nights a week in all of our branches, because I don't like to see people pull up during the summer reading program and want to take their child to the library after 6 o'clock and the library's closed because it's not one of the nights that we're open. So we need to be open more, and that is a constant thing that we need to strive for. We're looking at earlier openings. So right now we currently open at 10 o'clock. I think it's possible for us to start opening locations at 9 a.m. So there are people that get up early and want to get out and do things. And so we need to be that space for them. Whether you're a morning person or an evening person, we need to match up with that. Henrico's libraries are open at 9 to 9.
Mhm.
We can match that and do better. So those are the things we're looking at, and I am very confident our staff is going to be able to figure it out. We will have the resources to hire, to put people in place to support that, to have the capacity to open for those hours, but also the capacity to do programs and activities when our libraries are open. I'm also pleased to say that the funding will also support investment in books and materials and electronic access. So that is continues to grow, and we will continue to make that investment because we have many users who are, if you'll notice in the board report, you look at circulation,
That's wrong.
electronic content in the last 4 years has, I think, quadrupled almost. We went from 6,000 checkouts in 2019 to almost 25,000 checkouts in 2023 for the same month. So if you look at May, that's where we're at. We're going to check out 203 items electronically. That tells you people are using their electronic devices. And so we have to make that investment in those resources. We weren't doing that before. Now we are.
I don't know that this is an important issue, but part of the thing that drives that, for me personally, is I want the book, but the book isn't available. The only thing that is available is the electronic
Mhm.
version. So when you don't have a choice between your preferred
Yeah.
and electronic, you're driving people to electronic.
Mhm.
And I presume that's because it's the most cost-effective way for people to.
No,
But I don't know if you're driving a lot of people there, but you are driving people to
No
electronic.
intention.
well, it's both and. We have to have it in both formats. And one of the wonderful things that has happened in the last 3 years is we have federated searching on our online catalog. So when you go in and do a search on the catalog, you not only see our physical collection, but it's also tied to our electronic
Right.
collection.
And that's a huge.
Oh, it's
huge,
gigantic.
Huge improvement.
change.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that's also challenging for us is you know about the library app, but you also, if you're pulling your electronic resource from Libby, unfortunately, sometimes people get trapped in the Libby app. And so if you're in the Libby app, you'll do your search from the Libby app and you'll only be looking at what Overdrive is. You won't be looking in our online catalog. When you look in our online catalog, the online catalog searches Hoopla, Overdrive, I can't think of other items that are federated searches. Jen and
Yeah.
Phil are our team that manage our electronic resources and the library's website. And as I always say, our library website is our 10th branch.
Right.
And it's
No
open
question about that.
24/7,
No question.
365. Many people are using the library's website to find out what's going on, where it's going on, and also getting the things that they want to use. So it's really important, the investment we make in that website.
One thing I would say, to Chris's question, because it's an interesting one, that are we being pushed sometimes, and we've all run into that where you can't get it. And I saw this the other day. I was talking to one of my sons who's not in Richmond, and he was trying to get something, and he had checked all over, including Richmond, because he said, well, I'm going to see if I could bring something. He couldn't find it in hard copy, had to get electronic, what he needed. So it does happen, and we're not alone in that.
Well, I'm
But-
not saying it's a
No,
bad
no,
thing.
but
I mean,
but if something is being called upon enough times that we're getting it when people would rather get it in paper than electronic, that actually is a little bit of an issue, because the electronic, we have a limited number of times that we read each one for paying for it still.
It varies. It's
Okay.
wide open when
A-
it comes to that. It
a lot of
depends on who
those-
publishes
yeah.
it. It depends on who's distributing it. You know, the other thing about
We have a
electronic,
paper copy. It can be used over and over and over and over.
well, and it doesn't expire. The other,
Yeah.
the thing that we're discovering about electronic though is we can be much more responsive
Yeah.
to what people are wanting, because we can see
Right.
what they're requesting.
right.
We
And
can
it's
go in
an
and
instant.
in real time, look and see that, okay, wow, we have 100 holds for this book.
Right.
And we can then satisfy it immediately. And so we'll clear out a hold list right away,
Yeah.
which is something our users who are heavy users
Yeah.
love.
Right.
And so when you erase that hold list for people, they're very happy.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to constantly do. We're constantly looking at the data. We're constantly following what's going on there. I'm grateful to have a technical services acquisitions librarian and Jen works with her quite a bit to identify, okay, how are we marketing books? We've been having recently a lot of discussions about the book river and how that appears on the website, because people see that book river and they'll see a new book in there and be like, oh, I want to get that. And when they click on it, they're able to get it. That's, if you think about how that is, that's something that didn't exist 10 years ago. And Janet gave us a wonderful article. I hope you had time to read it, but it talks about those details. And we'll get into a little bit more of that when we get into facilities, but it's very exciting what we're able to do with the resources we're giving, how we continue to evolve as a library, and how we're going to meet these demands. The funding that you advocated for will help us do that even better coming in the next fiscal year. And I know that our staff they're ready, willing, and able to want to do that. So.
Sounds good.
I don't mean to sound like an idiot, but I learned something just now. I'm a Libby person. I didn't know there were other ways of going about it. So, I mean, everybody in here heard you. How do people outside this room know that? Because my friends use Libby. I didn't know there was another way of searching through, the catalog or whatever,
Right.
what are the steps? I mean, how is that communicated? Because, you know, when you get a library card, they don't sit you down and give you a class. You know, I mean.
Right.
Is there an instruction sheet or something that can be distributed along with it on the back page of the?
Well,
thing
usually the
that
gateway is our
tells us?
website, and our website will be the place that people are going to and can read and get answers to those questions.
Well, old
um,
people like me don't miss things.
Mhm.
And, I don't, I'm not a person, I'm gonna click buttons. I want some instructions, you know, where to go to find this. I want to
Mhm.
read it. I don't want to just, let me click that button, see what happens. You know, I mean, is there something, some instructions that can be distributed or
Mhm.
posted or something that tells people these things?
Well, that's one of the things that Jen and her team are always working on, is how do we promote the library and how do we let people know how to interface with things?
Mhm.
So I mentioned that we have the website, but we also have handbills that we put out in all of our library locations. So you'll find a bookmark that has Overdrive on it. You'll have, it's in the what's happening. It's also in all of the flyers that we talk about how to do whatever. So we'll have Hoopla bookmarks all over the library. So it'll talk about Hoopla and what's available in Hoopla. Hoopla is an electronic resource that as robust and has many offerings that Overdrive does not. So Hoopla has books in it, but it also has music. So it's probably the best source for music. If you want to listen to popular music. you
And
can-
that's what I thought it was. You
Right.
know, so I
Well, it's
didn't
also video, it's
go
also
there.
audiobooks, and I think Hoopla has, I'm a graphic novel reader, so
Mhm.
if you want to get graphic novels, it has the Marvel universe, it has everything in it. And so they look amazing on your phone or on your device. So we try our best to like do a printed version of what we're putting out there. The what's happening is going to talk about it. We have one of the things that we do all the time is, I don't know if you ever follow on our website, we have a blog. So
Mhm.
library staff will go in there and write about things of interest to them. They'll pick topics on the library and they'll talk about all of these different things to make people aware. That's an outstanding thing because they're sharing a little bit about what they get to see every day in the library with everyone. And you get to kind of meet them and figure out like, oh, I didn't know that Scott likes science fiction, or I didn't, so it helps us connect more with our users in a more intimate and personal way, which I think is really important. So getting people to write blog posts is a little bit of a challenge because
Like that.
people don't like to talk about themselves necessarily, but we've been doing a great job. So, it is a challenge in terms of like getting people to know all of the different ways, and it's changing all the time. So the federated searching, that's new. That's only been in existence for a while. So when you go into our website, you get to search all of those things. So if you can tell people, search on the library's app and not Libby, that's been a problem because people will get stuck in the Libby environment. And I do it too, because the Libby app is great and the old Overdrive app is going away. So they want you to go into Libby. And Libby it's like a car, right? There's certain things about this car I like to drive, but there's other cars that I like to drive better. So Libby's the same way and apps are the same way too. So you just have to hit buttons and try it. You're not going to break it. So
I'm just used to everything, the books, libraries for dummies, kind of.
So I have two questions. Say again how you clear a whole list.
So Overdrive will tell us, hey, you have all of these people waiting for this book, or you have the ratio on this book is pretty high. Would you like to do something about it? And Overdrive will offer you an opportunity to clear that whole list by paying for one-time copies to go to those users and clear that list. So you make an investment. You still have to buy the access to those books, but you can
And that's
satisfy the demand
electronic.
electronically. Yep.
copies.
So that's the
That's
bonus
not a
of
physical book.
that's not a physical book, but we can also gauge it from our physical books. If you're placing holds on the catalog, we see those lists as well, and we monitor those as well. So we know that we have to adjust ratios. We also get advanced publications that we know that, okay, James Patterson's going to come out with a book at this time. We know that we're going to need 20 copies to satisfy a hold list of 100 items. I mean, you know how that works. So we can advance copy those. And we're very good at getting books out the door. The processing of books has now gone from hours from days to hours.
Wow.
So we no longer are doing a bunch of processing, so books aren't sitting in boxes anymore in the technical services area. They pretty much come in, we open the box, scan them in, make a couple little adjustments, add a couple maybe stamps or stickers. Staff knows how much I hate stickers. And so then they go out on the shelf. So
So my next question, are we in good shape for spending all the collection money?
yeah,
I'm looking at your,
I believe we
your report.
probably overspent that. It just hasn't caught up
oh,
yet.
good.
And we
Good,
spent
yeah.
an incredible amount of resources in overdrive this year. That's why about mid-spring, people started noticing overdrive lists were they're not waiting for books. Like it was one of the most frustrating things. You go in there and do a search and be like, well, it'll only be about 8 to 10 weeks for us to get that book for you. Those wait times are being reduced. And we're starting to get ahead of those things. So we have books available when they hit the book stand. We have them either in electronic format or actual physical format. So we had to learn some tough lessons on that, but we're doing a lot better job of making sure we have those books when people want them.
Well, when I came in here today and went to get my hold, you have a customer who's mad at LeVar Stoney because there were 61 holds on the book she wanted.
Okay.
And so I was standing next to her, so I said, oh, what title is that? I was just curious. And she told me the title, and I said, wow, they need to buy more of those. And she said, well, what do you expect with LeVar Stoney
Wow.
running a
Whoa.
library? And I chose not to engage with her on that.
Huh.
That's an interesting
We'll have to look at
perception.
that. It's usually my fault, but that's okay.
They don't know you.
I'm good with that. Yeah. Yeah. Next time, give her my card.
Okay. Anything? Anything else for Garrett or Scott about budgeting, finance, et cetera right now? No? Janet? Facilities?
We had a good chat a couple weeks ago
Mhm.
on our ideal branch. To help us get started, I had sent everybody a list of things, in my opinion, that an ideal branch should have. So we started on that, and I came away from the meeting feeling pretty good about our branches because we have a lot of things that I had listed, and Cheryl brought us up to date on North Park, and there were opportunities given by the water leak, and our next meeting is next week. And I suppose we'll continue with, one thing we have to decide in our little group is what do we want to produce from these talks? So,
And I think we also talked about visiting some neighboring libraries,
we did,
And
field
good.
trips are
taking some
good,
field trips and looking at what's
Yeah.
going on. Gathering data, benchmarking.
or even visit our own
Huge
libraries.
believer in that.
So we're gonna be very deliberate and work on coming up with what we would like to see in an ideal library. Janet gave us an article that I included in your package. It's from the Canadian libraries. The Canadians are wonderful librarians and they have wonderful libraries. And that article I thought does a very nice job of capturing the evolution of libraries over the last 20 years. The challenges library staff face, the changing demographics of our communities, how we have made a transformation from a book-focused enterprise into a people-focused enterprise, and how we need to continue to evolve, but also those challenges. I think the author did a very nice job of representing that. So
Well, I thought it was kind of disturbing, but to get a really good picture of what goes on in libraries these days. I don't know if you've read it yet, but security in libraries is a big concern. Because governments all over the US and apparently Canada have kind of said, well, let the library take care of people who are wandering the streets. And
Right.
it's sad.
It does a very nice job of reflecting the challenges that an urban library has. And because we are one of the, we've all read Palaces of People. I think we shared that article. Gail shared the article from the New York Times earlier this year that talks about how libraries are all of these wonderful things, and we are a lot of wonderful things. We're also being asked to do things that are not in our purview. That's why you'll remember we were able to grant fund a social worker to exist in the library. And that social worker was able to help, part-time social worker was able to help us help some unsheltered people who were in the library. That position unfortunately was a victim of COVID and has gone away. Now, there has been a little bit of an evolution in the city. We now have a homeless liaison, and we're fortunate to have a former library staff person leading that. So we are constantly reaching out to Ms. Wilmore in terms of connecting with unsheltered folks. So she is leading an effort with that. And so we continue to connect with them. I would love to see us get a social worker back in the library. And maybe that's something we can do with next year's funding. I think the social worker, when we had them in there, they were able to build rapport with a lot of unsheltered men or men who are living in homeless insecurity, or resident home insecurity. So I thought that made a difference, and I would love to see us try and get that. And that is one of the things that we'll focus on, as well as our early literacy person.
Would you pursue that as funding to go in the library's budget, or shouldn't that be a city funding?
Well,
I think it should.
so the way it worked best was we had an outside agency. So we worked with the Daily Planet. And since the Daily Planet is just down the street from us, they had grant funds that they could fund a position in our budget. And we felt that connector best was as a Daily Planet employee was better connected to organizations around the city instead of just a DSS platform. Like a DSS worker, they're mainly interested in connecting them to the state resources. Whereas the homeless liaison the social work liaison that we had, they were able to kind of navigate veterans benefits or Daily Planet or medical resources or, those sorts of things. And it worked well. I would like to see, maybe we can get funding within the city's budget, or we'll pursue grant funds with the Daily Planet or partnerships with the Daily Planet. I think there are opportunities for funding a position like that. That gives us a little bit more flexibility in how that person would interface rather than a city employee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you do bring up a good point, though. When we're asking for more money, that is something that's definitely a little outside of our standard remit. And if we ask that, we need to make clear to council members and others that there's 100,000 that we're asking for of the extra we're asking for, the increase we're asking for. There's 100,000 here that is really doing this social services position. I mean, I think that's how I view it, at least, because otherwise, it's going to come out of something else that the library does.
Right.
The article also does a nice job of talking about how libraries are evolving and librarians' jobs are evolving. We used to only be working with books. And just this conversation, we've been talking about how electronic resources and all of those things are what librarians need to know today. So we're doing things beyond books, and programming is part of that as well. And we've talked about that as well. So we've got to have spaces that accommodate that. We've got to have welcoming spaces that take into account all of the different challenges that are going on in our community. So that's what we've been talking about. I think we're going to be able to develop that more in the facilities committee, and we'll continue to work with the CIP. Bill mentioned briefly that CIP process has started. So plans for 24-25 have begun. The library is on the list. The main library is on the list of buildings to be addressed, because they've identified that, yes, it's a 100-year-old building. We've taken a Model A and added air conditioning and power steering and power brakes to it, and it may be serving us, but not very well. And there are things that need to be done with it. So the CIP process, city administration is hearing that, and they're working on developing like a decision brief. Like, how do we assess that? How do we provide the information to the powers that be that an investment of 50, 70, $100 million in a new library is what the city needs to do. And so the process of that is what one we've been on now for 5 years. We did the master plan, which was the first step in that process. So that gives them all of the SWOT analysis, all of the surveying of the community, all of the things that they need to move to the next step. So the next step is continuing down the construction improvement process, continuing to build that case, answer those decisions, make a lot of determinations so that we have the justification to go out there and renovate the main library. And as we've talked, we need to start looking at a master plan for the branch libraries.
I think just adding a little bit to that, on that master plan, or the capital budget side of it, the funding that we're really looking for immediately is to get us to the point of knowing whether this is a 40 million, a 50 million, a 70 million, 100 million, 110, whatever, the number could be. There's a wide range that it could be, excuse me. Sorry. Wide range that could be, but what right now, the number that we're looking for in there is for the next step. It's not for that 70 million or whatever.
We don't know how much that's.
We don't know what that's gonna be, right? A question that I posed to Scott again the other day, because I'm not as quick on the uptake on some of these things as many of you, but is city administration, as they look at capital budgeting and having done capital budgeting and other things, you always look at this X dollars and their Y request for it. So, this is a priority. Everyone can agree that, we really need to renovate the library. It's just a question of, do we need to renovate the library more than other things that the city is allocating the money for, the basic capital budgeting. I said, it's my concern that I keep coming back to is that we need to keep the reasons that the library needs to be renovated in front of the people making these decisions. And we forget, we can talk about the vision of the future and all of these good things, but a lot of the reason this is being done is we have a library that has physical issues from a safety, from a maintenance, from a capacity, from a handicapped. There are a whole group of these things that are drivers that move it up in that priority. And those are the kind of things that as we start doing this again, we'll try to get that message out there to all of those players. They should have it, and the master plan document did a good job of selling some of that. But I'm not a believer that even though it's in that document, that everyone who deals with that document is going to pull those facts out. Sometimes you need to go through and say, as it says on, here, here, and here, we have a big problem. You're going to spend a lot of money on the HVAC, and you're going to do it again in 5 years if we don't do something, because we're patching it together. We're going to deal with the access issues and the ramps, and the things that have to be done from a safety perspective that are temporary, a lot of these. So we need to keep those in front, and we are striving to do that, is what I would say. And that's one that both advocacy and facilities can help us make sure we get that message to the right people. So we'll be talking more about it, but
The process will deliver us.
Did we talk, Scott and Gail and Susan, did we talk about doing a one-pager that took those points from the big document? Did we talk about doing that? No, but
Good
I thought we
idea.
did.
We'll continue to work on that.
That
But
was
I
a
think you're
long-
right. I think that's one thing Delia did not understand was bullets, she wants these charts that you can't see.
Okay, it's over there.
well, no, but it's important also because even, there've been a couple of members on the foundation who we've talked, and they said, well, what about, this? And you said, well, that's not really our issue. They said, well, what about a homeless shelter for this? I said, that's not within what the library would. We're here to represent the library, do the best things for the people of Richmond as far as what the library is capable of doing. And we need to do some things in our facilities to make sure we meet all those capabilities, particularly on the early literacy, particularly on those after hours, particularly on the after school programs in some areas. There are just so many of those things. And we have to make sure that what we're doing gets across there, because it's being weighed against other things that the city can do. So, and I think you're right, a bullet point list just makes it easy for people to see that. I think Chris has done a beautiful job of that type of packaging on the
love
early
bullet
literacy.
points.
Right. Well, we all, I mean, we see it. It's simple. It's funny. My wife kids me when I send texts out to family for things occasionally. She'll say, break it in a paragraph. I say, well, it's no a different thought. So break it up. Don't put more than, you know, 2 sentences together, basically, because people just look at things that way, particularly now we're gonna used to quick text and quick emails. People don't read as much in depth and more of the electronic reading. I'm still a paper reader a lot. And I prefer if I can get that book on hold to get the book. But
I
we
hear
also,
ya.
well, they say we read differently electronically from paper, actually. The way our eyes move even is different. So we're all getting used to, you know, our changes in that. And it is important to put it in that simple, clear form. And we've got a great story. We really do. I mean, many of the people in the city do not realize. They drive by the library and think, oh, what a beautiful or whatever, what a solid building is there. Okay. They don't see,
Oh, I haven't heard that.
they don't see what's going on beneath it or under, you know, inside of that and how
the columns are falling down. Something else.
they don't see it. They don't see the safety issue. They
Right.
don't see the bathroom safety issues with, you know, as you mentioned, referenced the Canadian one, you know, how do you deal with the people coming in and using them and the problem we've had with overdoses and things. So those are all things that are important and we'll continue getting that. Anyway, I didn't mean to say too much on facilities, but I think that's where we are. Anything else? Let's see, we've lost Cheryl. Did Cheryl have anything, do you think, on that we need to know updated, everything good?
So East
running?
End is doing their stormwater project, so I think it's our street is torn up quite a bit. And it's gonna be great when it's done. Other construction, we don't really have any other construction going on, but that project is ongoing.
Good.
Um,
Okay.
No other big facility updates.
Okay, Emily, anything on governance tonight?
No
Okay.
updates for me.
Okay. I don't have any new business, any unfinished business. Scott, do you know of any? Anyone else have anything? Then I am going to make a motion, ask that somebody make a motion for adjournment. Believe it or not, we're in an hour here.
I move to adjourn.
Sharon, okay, and a second.
I'll second.
Second, Janet, all in favor, aye. All right, we are adjourned.